Welcome to Rock Google Slides Like the Boss You Are. This is courtesy of Ryan Collins, Director of Technology in Kenton City Schools. He originally presented this at OETC, Ohio Educational Technology Conference. You can snap that QR code right now, and you can also go to bit.ly/rockgoogleslides. It's good to see you. I am John Dutton. Live, this will also be presented by Tom Berger, Sarah Schwab, Jason Tout, and I am a Level 2 certified Google educator. We are at Campus International High School. Just a few things about creating slides. You can create new Google Slides by going to drive.google.com and clicking that big old plus button. You can go into the URL bar and type slides.new. You can also assign a Google Slides in Google Classroom. Yes, we know that some of you don't use Google Classroom, but for those of you that do, you can always go ahead and assign that in Google Classroom. You can also take off all of the extra stuff, and I'll show you exactly how to do this, all the extra stuff on the URL, and just put a /copy at the end of it. And that'll make a new copy of whatever slideshow it is that you're looking at. You can also make easy clip art with emojis. You simply go to Insert and then Special Characters, and let me show you how this works real quick. So you see right here, this is the URL bar that I was talking about. Right now I'm in presentation mode, and you can tell because it says present up there. So if I go to an editing mode, now I can go into that slide. I can select this text, it's an emoji, and I can go to Insert, Special Characters, and instead of symbol, I want to select emoji, and I can get some eyeballs here and maybe a nose. And right now the font is just letting me have all black characters, so that's why it doesn't have color in this particular view. But if we go back to presentation mode, we might be able to see some color. Okay, so that's how you can do easy clip art with emojis. You can generally use Google Slides as a graphic editor. There are a lot of different ways to do this, and we will be going into several of those. In the live version of this professional development, we break you out into breakout rooms, one for red, one for yellow, one for green. The red breakout room will be for those folks who need a little bit extra help because this moves too quickly, and I understand this moves kind of quickly with the recording. You can always go back. The yellow is for folks who might need help in one or more places, and then the green room is for folks who understand it fairly completely and just want to play around with it. So feel free to join us on Wednesday or Thursday at 9 a.m. So you can also do page layout with Google Slides. And I will click on one of these and it will take us to another Google Slides. We see here that this particular slides is shaped completely differently. You notice this looks like a portrait view of a standard sheet of paper. And here's how we do this. We go to File, Page Setup, and you want to go to Custom. It's going to start here. Typically it's going to start on standard 4:3. That's just a ratio. If you go to custom, then you can change this to a sheet of paper, 8.5 by 11 inches, and that would be portrait style. If you wanted to change it to landscape, you would do 11 by 8.5. I'm going to make sure I don't change it because somebody spent a long time on this and I don't want to screw up all the formatting. Now, all of these resources are available for you. You can make copies of everything. So if you like how this poster looks, but you just want to change a few things, obviously the name of the high school, a few other things, you can just come in here and you can click on any of these images and change them, delete them, change the color, of course change any of the text. It's just like all sorts of different graphic editors. Google Slides is a really powerful graphic editor if you know how to use it. You can also add all sorts of shapes. So if we take a look at this one full screen, we can see that this looks like a graphic organizer, as would any other. Now the great thing about this is, now that we're on remote, we can create a Google Slides and then share that Google Slides with students so that they could actually edit this slideshow, so that all of these little text boxes that you see here with supporting detail, main idea, they can edit those if you share it with them as a Google Slides that they can edit. And we'll see later on how you can make it into a template, which is perfect for graphic organizers, because then students can make as many copies as they want to by using it as a template, and every time they use it as a template, it makes a new copy in their own Google Drive. All right. So how do we make all these fancy shapes? Well, you go up to the Shapes bar, right? You can go to Insert and Shape, but it's right here on our toolbar. So we click on Shapes, and we can make all these great little shapes. We can make arrows, and once you've made a shape, you can also change the border of that shape. So by clicking on Supporting Detail, something I can do is I can go up to the border, and I can change if it's dotted or dashed or a Morse code-ish over here, and that allows me to make changes to all of these different shapes. I'm going to undo that, and I just undid by doing Control-Z, which is pretty universal. You could have all sorts of flowcharts. You could think of doing all sorts of mind mapping here. Lots of different types of graphic organizers you could create. And if you want to print it out, of course, it prints out 8.5 by 11. Very convenient. So let's talk about comics. This is one thing that could be really helpful for those of you who want your students to produce something graphic in response to something they're reading or in response to a particular assignment. This meets all sorts of diverse learners. So how do we do comics? Well, there's two main ways. And again, all these demos are available to you. So we can make a table. All right, and I have a table down here that I created, and I'll make another one. So Insert Table. We'll make a 1 by 1. Right now it doesn't look like much, but if we change the size of it to be square, then it'll start to look something like a table we might recognize. So at this point, what I want to do is I want to create some shapes inside of this table. So if we want to have a speech bubble, we can use what's called a callout. So here's a little thought bubble for us. And of course I could write something in this thought bubble. I'm very literal. And if I wanted to, I could also have an emoji as my character. No sense in trying to draw something. Somebody drew something over here, but I could go ahead and insert a text box. Put that text box right there. And I realize that you could write in the table itself, but the text box gives you full and total control over what you're writing. Again, if I'm moving too quickly, you can move about the video and then review the slideshow at any time. And we're more than happy to help you out with any questions that you might have. So, insert special characters. I'm going to go down to emoji, and let's find a person. Now we have our person. Let's make this a lot bigger. Hey, now we can see him. And now we're making him think something. So that's pretty straightforward. Obviously you can dress this up. You can change the borders just like you would any sort of other table. And so we can make a nice dashed border, and we can bump up the thickness of it, and this starts to look like a comic that we might be more familiar with. So this is how you can create comics in a table, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to get rid of this for now. It leaves the text fields behind because those get kind of independently created of the table. Here's a finished version of that. This is where someone made a table that had 3 cells in the row as opposed to just 1 row and 1 cell. This is another way to make a comic, and this would be in individual frames. In this case, what the person is doing is creating a separate slideshow for the comic, where each frame of the comic, each panel of the comic is a different slide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you could have as many as you want. Now, once we create it, and that would be the same way where we have text boxes and we have callouts and we have shapes, and you can use you can import any image from Google that you want to, or Bing. If you want to use Bing, that's fine. And what you can do at this point is you go File, Download, and you can download it as an image, like a JPEG or a PNG or an SVG. We're going to download it as a JPEG. Again, just because I know I went pretty quick there. You go to File, and then Download, and then JPG. Now, we can go back into our comic, and we can pull what we just downloaded, and here is that first panel of the comic. And that's how you can pull all of your panels of the comic in there. And now we can do all sorts of fun things like changing the sizes. We can have them overlap each other. We can do all sorts of fun things with them so that it allows students to explore their creativity, or you can explore your creativity too. You know, this is an opportunity for you to do and learn something too, right? So let me get rid of that for now so that next time I present this, it's not hanging out there. So this is what a full comic strip might look like. Pretty simple and straightforward for the students to create. Once they get started on it, there's no telling what they might create. There are also interactives that you can create. I'm not a big fan of Star Wars, but Ryan, the gentleman who created this, he had a lot of fun with Star Wars. He's a big fan. I am not. So if I get any of the terminology wrong, just please forgive me, please. So, Star Wars Interactive. Let's click on it. Let's see what happens. This is a separate slideshow. So if the student is ingesting this, if the student is going through this slideshow, then this is the second slide they see after clicking on the first one, and they will notice that they can click on these 3 images, right? So you might start to think, I can click on things within the slideshow. That means I could make something like a quiz, like a Jeopardy game. You can absolutely do that. There are lots of great templates out there that harness this technology. So if we click on, is this Luke? Oh man, I'm getting in so much trouble. Yeah, it's Luke. All right. So we click on Luke. It takes us to the Luke slide. Then we can click on this village thing, and we go back to the first slide. Then we can click on Leia. We go to the Leia slide, and this very much acts like a web page might. We click on Han Solo, and there's the guy from Indiana Jones. And so this gives us a really good idea of how we can create interactivity within a slideshow. Now, if I just go ahead and click through the slideshow, I see all these 3 other slides for the 3 characters, meaning they're just slides within the slideshow. So how did I do this magic? Well, let's peel back the curtain a little bit. If I go to Luke, I see that it's pointing to slide 3. It's a link to slide 3. So how do we do that? Well, if I have the image selected, I go to Insert and then Link. Now it's already linked, so it's saying, hey, this is slide 3. Well, let me get rid of slide 3 so you can see what it would look like if it wasn't already linked. Gives me a drop down here, slides in this presentation. Note that I could link this to something like Google, excuse me, or I can link it to another slide in the presentation. So if I click on slide 3, it now links it to slide 3. Slide 3 is Luke, and it will go to Luke. So you might imagine that you could do this in a much more complex way, but this gives you a flavor for what we're talking about. What's next? Drag and drop. So we can use the functionality of Google Slides as an editor in order to be able to offer another way for students to interact. So right here I've got the drag and drop functionality over here. Sorry, I was in the wrong place. Now I don't want to present it. As the student, I'm not going to be able to do anything if I'm just looking at the drag and drop functionality. And it looks like it's taking some time to load, so we'll just wait for this to load real quick. But with this drag and drop functionality, what I'm doing is I'm actually using a master slide. Okay, so let's go back to this view. I'm using a master slide as the background. So let's go into that real quick. I go to Slide, Edit Master. And you see here that there's this blank template where it has the text. I can edit the text. It has this shape. And because this is a master slide, what I can do from the slide itself is I can click on the slide, I right click, I say Apply Layout, and then drag and drop. Now, if I change the layout to blank, you see that it's nonsense at this point. You have to make sure that that layout is changed to whatever you change that master slide to. So now I can't edit this text. I can't edit this shape right here. I'm clicking madly. Right? I can't edit any of that. If I move the coins over, maybe I can make 57 cents. Let's do some quick math. Let's see, 25, 25, 5. All right, that looks good. So there's 57 cents. And I can't accidentally drag this away. I can't drag the text away. It's minimal what I can actually click on because I'm using that master slide. So that's another way of doing interactions. And also, if I select all, so all I did was I just clicked and dragged, I can move everything back over. And then if the teacher tells me, all right, now go ahead and make 27 cents, I can change that in order to give myself a guide, and then I can say, all right, let's make 27 cents. So this is a great way to do all sorts of other sorts of interactives. Now you can use straight up GIFs or GIFs depending on your pronunciation. I'm not going to get into the whole debate about that. That's for another day. If you want to pronounce it like peanut butter, that's on you. But these are both GIF files, and there's a variety of ways you can get those. You can just right click on a GIF and you can download it and then insert it into Google Slides. There are a lot of websites that allow you for free access to a lot of different GIF files. Now the great power of Google Slides is that we can just throw a slideshow at a kid and it can have basically everything that they need, especially for remote learning, in order to be successful. So let's take a look at what that looks like. Clicked on the wrong button. So here is this web architecture lesson, right? And so this might be a technology lesson that you might give a student. And we start off with, very teacherly outcomes. All right, and you notice that this is a pretty cool template. It's pretty visually pleasing. Well, you can go to something called slidescarnival.com, and slidescarnival.com has a bevy of different themes that are completely free. For Google Slides, for PowerPoint, just go through slidescarnival.com, and once you get one of those templates, then you can play around with it, and you'll find that making something like this can take you mere minutes, whereas before, making something like this could seem really, really intimidating. So there's just some text telling us, all right, what is it that we're going to talk about, and here's an embedded video. You can go to Insert and then Video, and you can actually search on YouTube for a video to insert and just plunk it right in that slideshow. You notice that this particular slideshow has a lot of videos, and so of course you could record yourself, put it on YouTube, and then include that video so that students would be walked through little by little. All of these are super short videos so that it walks the students through pretty quickly. You can also have text alongside of a YouTube video. This is really helpful for putting some questions, putting an overview of what's going to be in that video. It really helps the students out. You can also have links. Just like I showed you how to make a link before, you can have a link to any sort of website. This takes us to a university website about how to install plugins. So students click on this, they get taken to an outside website, and then they can come back to the presentation. Here is a link to Google Classroom. Now, a lot of you are using Schoology, so you could just change this to a Schoology link, and it'll work the same way, where students can go ahead and complete the assignment out in Schoology, come back to this Google Slides. More links, so we can have links and videos. Have another title slide, more videos, more videos, more videos. And you can have 3 columns set up, and again, through slidescarnival.com, it's super simple to get all this stuff, and it comes with these layouts where you have these 3 columns. And then we wrap it up with assignment number 2, where we have all these links within assignment number 2. Again, you can have all these pointing to Schoology instead of Google Classroom, pointing to a Google Doc within Google Drive, all sorts of fun stuff. So the next thing is making a YouTube timer. YouTube, if you search, there are a ton of different timers of all sorts of different denominations, like 3 minutes, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds. And it's actually not that hard. This is a different professional development, though. It's not that hard to make your own YouTube video, especially of a timer. So if there's something in particular that you want, you can do a little bit of research and make your own video. This YouTube timer is really helpful, especially in a self-guided lesson where you want students to just spend a certain amount of time in a particular place in the slideshow, or for making sure that you yourself are keeping to your own time. Now, one extra thing that you can do is you can have this YouTube timer automatically playing when the slide starts up. So I right-click on the YouTube video, and I'm going to go to Format Options, and I'll click on Video Playback and select Autoplay when presenting. So what that's going to do is as soon as this slide comes up, it's going to play that video and play that timer. I can shove that timer to the bottom right-hand corner, and so it can be displaying but not prominent, and meanwhile something else can be happening. It can be, quiz yourself on 10 vocabulary terms. You could do a variety of different things at that point. So really good for self-guided study. Next up, entry and exit tickets. So this is a great way to make sure that students understand what you did the previous day or what you did for that lesson. And the light way to do this is to make sure that you have a Google form that students always go to. You can have a bit.ly that you set up so that students always know they can go to this form, and they will always be responding. And you see this YouTube timer in the bottom right-hand corner. They will always be responding on the same form. And so you can have it formatted where you have 3 questions every single time. The first 2 are multiple choice, and the third one is maybe some sort of paragraph. So let's take a look at what that Google form might look like. So here we have the creator view. It looks like my YouTube video crashed, but that's okay. So I've got 3 questions on here. What's the capital of Ohio? And then I have 2 other questions that are multiple choice. So what I did is I made this a quiz, and I don't want to get too much into this because this is outside the scope of Google Slides, of course. But in Google Forms, if you go to Settings, and by the way, this is a Google form, there's a variety of ways, just like Google Slides, to make a new form. The easiest way is to type in forms.new up here, and that'll make you a new form. Click on the gear and go to Settings. In order to make a new quiz, you go to Quizzes and make sure this is selected. And there's a variety of different settings that you want to play around with. Generally, you want to make sure you're collecting email addresses so you know which students are filling out your quiz. Then, if you make your question, you can add A, B, C, D, and E, and you can also have an answer key. It's kind of a pain to change this each and every day, especially if you have both an entrance and an exit ticket, but this is something that can give students instant feedback. Now you notice up here, I did give students feedback. This is a congratulations video, but down here it's telling you why these other answers are not correct. It's really good to get instantaneous feedback, that way the students aren't pestering you, why did I get that one wrong? This is what it looks like for the student, and so they would select, for example, Columbus, B, and D, and then they click Submit. Really simple, straightforward. Of course, they have to enter their email address, and if they don't, then it won't let them submit it. Okay? So that's how you can do entry and exit tickets. Really great way to get some formative feedback from students. This is a little bit more advanced. You don't really have to use any of these URL tricks, but this is super helpful. I'm just going to walk through a couple of these. So if we click on this one, it's going to preview this very same presentation, except in minimal mode. So in minimal mode means that we don't have the navigation in the bottom left. So it's a nice clean slate where we're just seeing the presentation. Now something else we can do is we can go to template/preview. And I want to point out the address bar here. Everything where it says edit, and I'll show you that on our slideshow, it says edit over here, we get rid of all that and replace it with template/preview. That's how we get this. And now this is super cool because we could use this with all sorts of different things. So for example, if I wanted to use this for my page layout, right, I replace this edit with template/preview, and now I can give this to students and they can use this as a template. They can edit it all on their own and they can make as many copies of it as they want to. Really helpful. Now if you just want to give them a copy, you would do /copy, and this prompts you to make a copy and add it to your Google Drive. Alright. Last piece, second to last piece that I want to show you is audience tools. Let's take a look at what that looks like live. So let's click on presenter view. And now you get to be a wizard, because if students are viewing this on Zoom or on Teams in the background here, only you can see presenter view. If you're sharing just this window, you can see this and you can be a magician, and here's why you can be a magician. So let's maximize this so we can get the full view here. I like to split the screen 50-50 on my audience tools. I can see what the next slide is going to be, what the next animation is going to be. So I can predict what we're going to see next. Oh, and let me show you this window over here. Oh, and let me show you how you can ask a question. So they're seeing this, and I can see the next slide. Super, super helpful. I also see speaker notes over here. In fact, I was going to talk about that next. Look at that. I knew I was going to talk about that next. Oh, don't pay attention to the next one. I want that to be a surprise. And if I click on Audience Tools, this is possibly the most powerful part of all. I click on Start New. When I click on Start New, it actually shows me, and I'll show you what this looks like. If I'm sharing this on Zoom or on Teams, this is what appears for the students. slides.app.goo.gl/ some 5-letter and number code. They go to that and they can ask questions live. It only appears for me. It'll appear over here. Questions will appear. So that way students can ask things anonymously. I can answer them just as anonymously. This is better than the chat. A lot of kids want to show off for their friends in the chat. You can also turn off the chat in Zoom or on Teams and just have this be the way that students communicate with you. That way you can still see what you're presenting, you can see the next slide, and you can see any questions that students have. Super, super powerful stuff. Now, of course, this is still on, so it's going to continue saying ask a question until I turn that off. Even though I close down that window, it's still, the presenter mode is still on. So there's one more thing that you may be interested in, and that is casting presentations. So you can cast presentations, you can present on another screen by installing this extension. And when you install this extension, what it does is it allows you to present on another screen so students are seeing what you're seeing, and then you can basically control their screen. Any questions, please go to the slideshow. My contact information is on there, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you so much.